Okay. Safety. We're going to go over a lot of different things: COVID safety gear, buddy system, hypothermia, what recommended car gear, and what we'd like to see you have in the field. Some tips for preventing injuries, some other field work hazards, and then in case of an emergency or injury, then what to do. So for our COVID safety rules include using a mask. Masks are required if you're going to be within 6 feet at all. Keep in mind that you are exercising if you're walking upstream, and that breathing harder means that your particles in your breath will travel further than if you're breathing really easily from sitting in a chair. So we would prefer if you could wear your mask all the time, but absolutely necessary within 6 feet of each other. And we would like your mask to be handy at all times in case you were social distancing, but for some reason you come within 6 feet of each other. We want your mask to be very easy to access and to put on. If anyone has problems with their partners not wearing masks, please let us know, because we can't have volunteers not following our safety protocols. And our safety protocols are based on the rules of the state of Washington. Not only are we a nonprofit, but we also are funded by the state. And so it's really important that we follow these things. So here is a spawner survey volunteer wearing the proper equipment. He's got his waders and boots. We do not want people wet wading. That's when you walk in sandals and shorts. As winter sets in, these environments get extremely cold. And once you're wet, it's very hard to maintain a healthy body temperature. So we want boots and waders. It also helps prevent injuries to have good boots. We need everyone to wear a personal flotation device, PFD vest, if they're walking next to a creek that's greater depth than knee deep. And that sounds strict, but it's easier to drown in cold water and water when you're wearing waders. And PFDs are also a great layer to keep you warm. If you need one, you can borrow one from us. Please let Danielle know that that's a piece of equipment you need, and we can bring it to you on the 3rd, and you can just pick up your gear, or we can make an appointment for you to stop by the office and pick up whatever you need. SFPG vest, orange vest, high vis. It's really important to wear this because in the letters we send out to landowners along these streams, we tell them that our surveyors are going to be wearing these vests, and it helps distinguish you from a creepy person walking by private property and a volunteer surveyor with a nonprofit and a member of a team that gave notice before walking on their private property. So please help landowners stay comfortable and help yourself stay safe by wearing a high-vis vest. Walking stick, multifunctional tool. You can swat blackberries out of your way with this. You can measure salmon. You can catch yourself and prevent a slip. And we have these to check out as well. Gloves help you stay warm and protect your hands from scrapes and also from fish juices. Polarized sunglasses are optional, but it helps with visibility. You're going to need green flagging to mark reds. We have this to check out, just like all these other materials. Sharpies for the green flagging. Tip: if a Sharpie or flagging is wet, it won't write. So keep your Sharpies and your flagging dry. Write in the rain with pencils. You can either get your data sheets on Write in the Rain paper, and we can check those out to you, or you can use Write in the Rain notebooks that we give to you as well and collect data in the rain. Whatever you bring with you should be Write in the Rain paper, because you're going to be out surveying in the rain. Pruners to help make your path along the stream. A map with coordinates that we provide you in your stream packets. It's important to have a map with coordinates because if you get injured and stuck out there, you have to be able to tell rescuers where you are. So we have coordinates of the beginning and end of streams. Some streams are in town, and the map can also tell you what roads are closest. So that's really important to have information to have with you. If you don't bring your map, you should write the start and end coordinates in your Write in the Rain paper or on your data sheet so that you have it if you need it. We require spawner surveyors to go out with a buddy. If your buddy is busy, we can help you contact another spawner survey buddy to go out with another volunteer, or if you want to bring a friend or a spouse, they need to be over 18. to be your buddy. And if they aren't already a registered volunteer who has signed the COVID release, then anyone coming with you, whether they're just a guest, they're a third person on a normally 2-person team, or if your buddy is busy and you want to take your spouse to walk your creek, they need to sign the volunteer registration sheet and the COVID sheet. And this is because all volunteers are covered under our LNI. And so if you were injured while you're walking, if you twist your ankle, if you break your finger, things like this, when you go see the doctor for your injury, then you would tell them that you are covered under the LNI, the Skagit Fishery Enhancement Group LNI. And if you bring somebody out into the field and they get injured and they haven't filled out their volunteer forms, then there's nothing we can do. They're not covered by LNI. Our LNI insurance does not cover COVID. So it's really important that everybody follows our COVID safety rules. If you're sick, don't go out. If you forget your mask, don't go out. Don't come within 6 feet of each other. And if somebody gets COVID and they think it might be something that they got while they were spawner surveying with us, that's not something our LNI covers, but it does cover injuries. And it's important if you're injured to tell the doctor at your first appointment that you were injured while working with us, so that LNI kicks in. So don't bring a buddy all the time. And if you bring any extra buddies, have them fill out the paperwork so that they stay covered if they're hurt. Everybody needs to be thinking about hypothermia and how to keep it from happening to you or your buddy. So you need to know the symptoms and recognize them in yourself or your buddy early. So shivering, and even a little shivering means that you should consider stopping and fixing it, warming yourself up, so because it's much easier to stay warm than it is to warm up once you become cold. Sudden drowsiness, excessive clumsiness or a change in clumsiness. And then once you get to slurred speech, confusion, and shallow breathing, then it's a serious, serious health risk. And you can treat with warm fluids. So a thermos of hot tea or hot chocolate in your backpack is a great idea. Change into dry clothes as soon as possible if anything is wet. Try to get shelter if you're injured and you stuck out there. Try to get some sort of shelter, like a safety blanket over you. Make sure that you've had enough food, because if you're really low on calories, then it can be harder for your body to keep itself warm. Use hand warmers and be active, but don't let yourself get excessively sweaty, because that's just as dangerous as being wet. And the best way to prevent hypothermia is to be really offensive about it, just to not let it happen. And if you feel any coldness setting in, to deal with it right away. Check the weather, make sure the weather is safe before you go out to your stream. But even if you get out there and then it seems like the conditions are dangerous, turn around. Keep warm, wear layers of warm material, avoid cotton. Cotton is no longer, it's not a material that keeps you warm once it gets cold. So if you have non-cotton material, so breathable spandexy layers are great because it helps wick the sweat away. Wool is excellent. Synthetic puffy coats, those are great. Raincoats. These are going to keep you a lot warmer than sweatshirts and long sleeve cotton t-shirts. Those are things to avoid. Don't let yourself get sweaty, because you can quickly go from overheated and sweaty to cold and wet. Be prepared for dry clothing and change if you get wet. So keep spare clothing, like spare socks, in your bag that you carry with you in case you get wet and you can deal with it before you get cold. Keep an eye on your partner and keep them safe and help them stay warm. Don't let your partner get cold, and encourage them to stop and warm up if they get wet. And this is so important. Be prepared to stay warm in an emergency. It's easy to stay warm when you're walking, nothing bad happens, but if your partner breaks their ankle and you're on a stream away from the road, you're not going to be rescued by paramedics in a matter of minutes. It's going to be a search and rescue situation. We had search and rescue come out to Ennis Creek several years ago when somebody had a medical issue, and it took 4 hours to get to them. So when you pack your bag, ask yourself, are you prepared to be still in the weather for several hours if you or your partner gets injured? So think about what you're going to sit on to keep between your body and the ground. Do you have layers that you can add if it gets colder or windier? Do you have a change of socks or a shirt if it gets cold, and carry those things with you so that you're safe in case of emergency. And the more remote your creek is, the more important it is.
Aaron, I just wanted to jump in and mention that among the things that we supply for you to check out are space blankets. And it was after that incident on Ennis that we started to include space blankets for checkout among your green survey tape and your Sharpies and your clippers. We have a nice supply of those that we will loan to you as well.
Yes. Thank you, Lucy. So yeah, have layers, be prepared to have to be still in case of an emergency. We also encourage you to please have gear in your car in case you get wet at the end of the survey or you get a little cold and you get to your car. It's a good idea to have socks and pants, shirt, jacket, a blanket, something warm to drink to warm someone up in case they get cold. But your car kit is not a good substitute for being prepared in your backpack in the field. So please have safety warm-up equipment both in your vehicle and in your bag. There's a risk of broken bones or sprains. You guys are walking on uneven, slippery ground, possibly icy ground. You're going to be moving slowly and carefully, and wearing waders with felt soles are good because they're not slippery, but you also need to make sure that your waders are clean before moving between bodies of water. And you can talk to me about cleaning your waders and what streams especially have to have clean waders, because felt soles are less slippery, but they're much better at transferring invasive species. And be super aware of barbed wire. It's all over in the ground, sticking out of, around tree trunks. And if you get cut by barbed wire or any other sharp hazards, it's important to clean it out right away with drinkable water on site. And really, if you don't have your tetanus shot, really check into it, because you can get tetanus from barbed wire or even something like a blackberry thorn. A good blackberry thorn snag can be really can get really nasty and infected, and to have your tetanus shot up to date. And then other hazards. So salmon are delicious, and humans and animals alike like to eat them. If you see any bears or other large intimidating animals, abandon the survey and leave, and let us know that you saw a bear, because it's important for us to know about that kind of thing year to year. If you run into any hostile pets, including dogs, abandon the survey and let us know that there's mean dogs. It may mean that you get assigned to a different creek for that season, but that's a lot better than having a dog bite. So please let us know if you run into any mean dogs that make you uncomfortable at all. Watch the weather, watch the forecasting so that you're not out when the weather turns, and also check your light time. So make sure that the end of your survey isn't going to coincide with darkness, so that you're not walking on uneven terrain in the dark. And just remember that you're sometimes going to be in remote areas where it's hard to rescue you. And then one last thing, make sure, in addition to the buddy that you're walking with, that somebody besides your spawner survey buddy knows where you are and what time you expect to be back. If you your spouse can potentially be, or roommates can potentially be good people to check in with, but you should always tell somebody, I'm going to be at this stream, I'm going to park at this area, and I expect to be back at 5. And if you don't come back at 5, this person should start worrying about you, and should have our contact information and other contact information they would need to help find you. So if you and your partner are stuck and you don't have cell phone service, and darkness is falling, and you really need someone to notice that you're gone, then it can be the difference between being out all night and being rescued in 4 hours. If you don't have somebody available to be that person, then feel free to call me, and you can tell me that you expect to finish your survey at 5, and you'll call me when you're done. I don't receive a call from you at the time that you tell me to expect it, then I'll call you several times. And if I don't hear from you, then I'll start worrying and go check the creek that you're at to see if your car is still there. And so if I'm going to be your buddy, then tell me where you're parking and what car you're driving. And if we still can't locate you, then we would start to deploy resources to come and see where you are. So we're happy to be your to notice if you don't come back from your survey buddy, if you don't have somebody who is better suited to do that. So just let us know. In case of an emergency, get away from the danger if possible, treat the injury using a first aid kit. We have some first aid supplies we can check out, but we strongly encourage you to carry your own first aid kit with materials that you have the training to use. So tape and ACE bandages and ibuprofen, these are all good things. If you have an allergy, your EpiPen and your Benadryl, things like that. Call 911 if that injury is severe. And just because you don't have cell phone service for most calls doesn't mean you don't have cell service for 911. So if you go to try to call 911 and you see no service, just try it anyway, in case another carrier covers that area and you get put through. If anything happens, even a barbed wire scrape, even something that doesn't make you go to the doctor that day, let us know, fill out an incident report form. Something like a bee sting or barbed wire scrape can turn nasty and can send you to the doctor later. A sore ankle, if you twist your ankle a bit and you go home and you ice it, fill out a safety incident report form. And then if you end up going to the doctor a little bit later for the injury because it just doesn't get better or it gets worse, then you have the paperwork set up to be covered by our LNI. And we're going to be sending you this in your stream packet. Okay, so volunteer requirements: notify a trusted individual on your destination and return time, roommates, spouses, good friends, and if you don't have somebody who is going to be home to notice that you're gone, then feel free to use us. I'm happy to do that for you. Be prepared in case of an emergency, wear your PFD. If the water is greater than knee deep, it's going to keep you warm and safe. Wear your proper footwear. Please do not wet wade. The water's too cold this time of year for that. And bring layers to wear and to carry. Please carry your phone. Phones like to die when it gets cold, so it's a good idea to keep it in an inside pocket and consider a portable charger if you find that your phone runs low. You can turn it on airplane mode so that it conserves power until you're ready to use it if it's cold and searching. But keep your phone with you and have your GPS start and end points or your map with you in case you need to call and explain where you are. Bring a trail first aid kit with any medications you need, as well as first aid supplies. Have a first aid kit and other supplies in your vehicle in case somebody's wet or cold. And if you have a GPS, it's a good idea to carry, and carry the 10 essentials. And these are not something that we made up. It's a field, 10 things you should always have when you're out in the field, whether it's hiking or backpacking or camping or spawner surveying. Your map, your layers, food for the day, and this can be something that helps prevent hypothermia. Bring drinking water, both for drinking and in case of a injury that you need to keep clean. First aid, emergency shelter, including a space blanket that we can provide. It's a great idea to bring a headlight and flashlight in case it's a little darker than you expect at the end of your survey, but please try to avoid being out in twilight or night. You can bring a lighter with you, but in these environments, the wood is quite wet, so you shouldn't rely on fire in case of an emergency to keep warm. A knife or multi-tool is a great idea. You'll have clippers to cut open salmon, but a knife is a good idea too. And then polarized sunglasses or sunscreen if we get a rare sunny day. Okay. So please write in or unmute yourself. What is the correct protocol if you cannot survey your creek within 7 to 10 days of your last survey? What should you do? Lucy's going to look at the chat box, but unmuting is great too. Okay. Any AmeriCorps have an idea? Okay, oops. Is somebody on, is Lucy, are you on mute?
I was on mute, yes.
I heard you. Lucy,
Yes.
what should they do?
People should, well, Katie and Catherine have it right, as does Ryan. You should contact you or Danielle as soon as
Yes.
you know that you can't go, whether it's in advance or day of. And if you have a substitute, say you're a team of 3, then great, as long as they've filled out all the required paperwork. And if you don't, then that's our job to find you a substitute. And you also, Ryan is correct, if the survey does not happen, you need to write unknown, don't write zeros.
Yeah, Ryan
your data
is
sheet.
Ryan is on it.
This is not Ryan's first rodeo.
It isn't. No, that's why he's surveying one of our most critical streams, NP, and that's on that stream. It's very, very important that we don't miss a survey on NP if we are approaching the 10-day period where a survey isn't done. For that one, we call WDFW and they survey it. So, so Ryan is on it. Okay, so if you don't put a 0, as Ryan said, if you don't survey, when is the correct time to put a 0 on your data sheet?
When you see 0 fish.
Exactly, when you don't see something, you went out to count and you didn't see any fish, that's the correct time. There are some places on this data sheet where it's okay to leave a blank, or even better, you can put an NA for not applicable. And that means, so it would be if you had 5 live fish, 2 carcasses, but none of those carcasses were missing their adipose fin, then you would put NA under no adipose fin. If you saw 5 coho and 0 Chinook, then because you were there and you were looking at the creek, but you didn't see any Chinook, you could put a 0. It's for 0 Chinook. You wouldn't put an NA because you were out there to count salmon and you saw 0 salmon. Or you could put 0 for 0 without an adipose fin. Blanks, we don't know what a blank is necessarily. Is a blank a 0? Is a blank a not applicable? Is a blank unknown? So please fill out your entire data sheet, and you don't have to, for example, in flow type, you don't have to write check on one condition and then NA on the other. You can just leave those blanks because you've checked one. But on the counts for salmon, if you completed your survey, please fill out the 0s because you were there, and if there were pink salmon, you would have counted pink salmon, but you counted 0 pink salmon. Okay, so that we're reaching the end here. Some volunteers in some years may not spot salmon during spawner surveys. We're hoping this is not the case this year for almost everybody because the forecast is that we're going to have great coho runs. It is so important, even if you walk a stream all year and you don't see any salmon, that's still a number. 0 is a number. You were out counting and you saw 0. As we said, we use this information for to assess possible locations for future projects, possible outcomes for past restoration projects. We put these this data in when we write grants for that area. So 0 is a number, but if you really want to see salmon or you want to see more salmon, and because you're just not getting enough during your spawner surveys for whatever reason, we are going to do virtual salmon sightings this year, which means we're going to make a Google story map that we're able to send everybody out. It'll have locations where you can go to a public accessible place and see salmon. And we're going to try to keep that updated. You can also email Danielle or I directly and say, I really want to see salmon. I really want to see kokanee. And we can work individually on getting you to see what you'd like to see, because we want everybody to feel like they saw the number of salmon that they really wanted to see this year. But we're not having you walk streams where we know there's going to be no salmon. So we hope every year that every stream that's walked by spawner surveyors will have salmon. There's none that we're expecting 0. Okay, so you've seen this before. You'll see it in an email after this. We need a volunteer registration from every person and a signed COVID waiver. When we receive these things from you, we're going to give you your stream packet. That's going to have an incident report form or an injury report form. It's going to have the information on your creek and everything you need to start walking streams. So until you have your stream packet, you cannot walk your stream because we need your volunteer paperwork from you so that you're not covered for our LNI and so that we know that you know the COVID-19 safety procedures that we need you to follow. And you'll also get the new data sheets and the volunteer time sheets as part of your stream packet. So once you get that stream packet, you can start walking your creek as early as you want to. We would like everybody's first week to be no later than the 3rd week of October. So if you don't start before the 3rd week, we want you to walk your creek starting the 3rd week in October. If you would like to get started sooner, that is fine, as long as you have your stream packet. And that is it. So you will see an email from us with the links to watch this. If you bring guests in the future, then one of the things that we'll need is they'll need to watch the safety portion of this video. This video will be split up into safety and methods. So if you want to bring a buddy in the future who they are going to have to fill out a volunteer form, a COVID form, and they're going to need to watch the safety portion of this video. And that's it. Thank you so much for doing this virtual training this year, or for people watching it on YouTube later for watching it. And we really hope that next year that we're doing an in-person training.
Does anybody have additional questions? You can also follow up if you think of a question as soon as you log off. You can follow up with an email to Erin, might be the best person to ask. Yeah. I'm happy to answer questions too. You can throw one out there to Danielle if you want to, and she'll give it her best shot.
I do have one more thing I wanted to say. We like to do some sort of thank you for our volunteers at the end of the season every year. And I don't know how the potluck would work this year. We have to still look into that, but we are going to do, for everybody who makes it to the end of the season, we're going to put all your names in anybody who's interested, put your names in a jar and pull out a name. And somebody is going to be gifted, some lucky winner is going to be gifted with a very beautiful handmade 100% wool hat that has trees all around it, made by me, because I like to knit, and it's just a general adult size, so women or men will be able to use it. So if you're interested in a handmade wool hat at the end of the season, we'll put your name in and somebody will get it as a thank you.
Thanks for attending, everybody.
Thank you.
Does anybody know off the top of their head if they're going to join the in-person optional training on Saturday at Pomona Grange Park? If you know you're attending and you know you'd like to borrow waders and whatnot, we can bring them to the training. And you don't have to decide right now.
So far, we have Rondi is coming on Saturday.
Okay.
I got your email.
Great.
Great, thanks, Rondi. And tell Danielle or I if you need to check out any materials. You received the gear list in your email, and if you peruse that gear list and you see any equipment that you don't have, especially something like an orange vest that says SFEG on the back, but also safety blankets and walking sticks, we check out waders and boots. As well. We have some polarized glasses, we have clippers. So please tell us what you need and we'll bring it on the 3rd to Pomona Grange Park for you to pick up, or you can make an appointment with Danielle and Danielle can give you what you need. But we are not going to drag all of our equipment in our entire shop out on the 3rd. So if you don't give us a heads up, then we may not have the material available that you need. So please let us know.